I want to take this opportunity because we've learned that there are diverse people with different languages. I'm sure that you have...
D'abord, merci beaucoup pour cette opportunité d'être là. Merci de votre présence également.
Okay, I will speak. We are very happy that it's a historic visit because we have received a lot of visitors at the Victim Center, but this is the first of its kind to have different mayors from different countries visiting the Victim Center.
On est très heureux de vous accueillir parce qu'on a déjà reçu beaucoup de monde, beaucoup de visiteurs, mais c'est la première fois qu'on a une visite de cette ampleur avec des maires, des personnes de différents pays.
So we want to acknowledge that and thank you very much because for us this is a milestone and it also helps because an institution that is dealing with victims of human rights violation having mayors of different countries for us is very historic and we want to take this opportunity to thank you very well and welcome you.
Je vous remercie vraiment beaucoup parce que c'est très important d'avoir votre présence en tant que maire de différents pays parce que c'est quelque chose d'historique pour un centre qui travaille avec les victimes. Donc vraiment, on vous remercie de votre présence.
Actually, I was made to understand that there are there are two areas that you are very particular about, and one you want to hear from us, the challenges faced by victims of human rights violation from the previous government, and secondly, to learn the experiences that we have and the support we have been giving to victims. Those are the areas I was made to understand that you want to hear.
J'ai compris que vous avez deux questions en particulier qui vous intéressent. Déjà, l'accueil qu'on propose aux victimes ici au centre. Et aussi les difficultés, les défis qu'on rencontre dans l'accueil pour ces victimes.
I am sure my colleague Aisha, who is also a victim and also a staff of the Victim Center, will elaborate more in detail as we go along with the areas that I have just mentioned.
Je suis sûre que ma collègue Aisha, qui est aussi une victime, va développer davantage sur les défis qu'on rencontre ici au centre et l'accueil qu'on propose.
Briefly, I want to inform you that the Gambia Center for Victims of Human Rights Violation, known as the Victim Center, was established in 2017.
D'abord, pour vous dire que ce centre, le centre pour les victimes de violations de droits humains, a été établi en 2017.
And actually, it's the victims themselves that thought it necessary and decided to form the organization so that it becomes a platform for them to address, it becomes a platform to address for justice, to seek for justice and other issues of human rights violations.
Tout d'abord, c'était les victimes elles-mêmes qui ont eu cette initiative de créer cette plateforme pour qu'elles puissent chercher la justice, chercher une réparation.
Since then, it was registered at the AG Chambers, as the Minister of Justice, as an organization, as a non-for-profit and non-political. So the Victim Center is non-political. We are not citing any political institution for that matter. We talk about justice, we talk about injustice that affects victims.
Donc, dès le début, ça a été reconnu par le ministère de la Justice comme une NGO qui n'a pas de lien politique. C'est une NGO qui reçoit aucun support politique. Donc, elle est indépendante.
The Victim Center it has a secretariat headed by the national coordinator, and below that you have the heads of program. Mr. Jom, as the head of program, was the one that is chairing the occasion, and then we have program and documentation. Let me just.
Ouais, donc juste pour l'organisation du centre, ils ont un secrétariat qui a un coordinateur national et aussi le responsable des programmes. Et ils ont plusieurs programmes différents.
The program and documentation are responsible to document victims of human rights violation, and at the same time, they also implement activities.
Donc le programme qui fait la documentation aussi, c'est déjà avec les victimes de violations des droits humains. Oui. Et ils implémentent aussi des actions.
We also have a finance department that deal with the financial resources of the institution.
Donc, ils ont aussi le département de finances qui gère toute la partie des moyens financiers qu'ils ont.
We used to have very important unit. As we speak, they are not because of lack of funding, and I think my colleague will elaborate. That's the legal department. We used to have legal department. We also have the psychosocial unit. These are two units that were very, very important. But as we speak, it's non-functional at the moment. But then, some of the staff that have been, their capacities have been built when it comes to psychosocial issues. For instance, the program and documentation officers can also counsel victims of human rights violence, because you might recall that some of the victims were traumatized during the Yahya Jammeh era. Obviously, they need to be counseled. So that institution is not that unit is not. I'm a teacher. I'm an ex-teacher.
Avant, ils avaient deux départements qui n'existent plus aujourd'hui parce qu'il manque de moyens, il n'y a plus de financement pour ces deux départements. C'était le département légal et aussi le psychosocial. Donc c'était des départements qui faisaient de l'accompagnement des victimes, mais malheureusement, vu le manque de moyens, ça n'existe plus en ce moment. Mais le département de documentation, ils essayent de faire un peu ce suivi avec les victimes parce qu'il faut se rappeler que la plupart des victimes ont été traumatisées. Donc elles ont besoin d'un accompagnement régulier.
We have a communication department. As we speak, the communication department amplify the work of the Victim Center in most of our platforms.
Ils ont aussi un département de communication qui multiplient leurs voix, qui partagent ce qu'ils font pour donner plus de voix au travail.
I'm also hasty to say that we also have a board of directors, and the board of directors are 9 in numbers, and we have 4 female, and the rest are male. And they've been very, very proactive in terms of supporting the victims as an oversight body.
Dans le
Board of directors.
Le comité de direction, ils ont 4 femmes qui sont très très actives, très engagées avec les victimes.
And the board of directors is chaired by the chairman, Mr. Jawo, who was elected by the victims. Usually, this board are members that have been elected. They are not being chosen. They are elected by the victims. We have over 1,000, approximately 500 victims. That when we go to the annual general meeting every 2 years, they elect a new board. And this board, they've just recently been elected last year, around August.
Les membres sont élus par les victimes elles-mêmes tous les 2 ans, merci. Donc c'est très important pour eux que ce soit les victimes elles-mêmes qui choisissent leurs représentants. Il y a actuellement 1500 victimes inscrites qui votent.
We've been working with the National Human Rights Commission. We have signed an MOU with them in terms of monitoring the implementation of the TRRC recommendation. We are also working with other CSOs and also other victim-led organizations in terms of the monitoring the implementation of the TRRC, the white paper.
Il travaille avec le Comité national des droits humains pour bien implémenter les recommandations. Donc il travaille aussi avec d'autres associations qui suivent les droits humains aussi.
Yes, we also implement other project activities. We secure donor funding from different partners. Most of our donors are based externally. We have international sites of concerns, National Endowment for Democracy. They are based in New York, and they are our major partners in terms of supporting our projects, more of advocacy.
Ils ont différents sponsors, nationaux et internationaux aussi. Vous avez mentionné,
the National Endowment Fund, international sites of concerns. They are based in New York. These are
qui est basé aux États-Unis également.
I must also hasten to say that we've not been supported by government, but we are also happy that government is also moving the agenda of the victims' plight. Yes, you may disagree with them at some point, but I know Sira will also talk about the reparation bill, which actually has been pushed forward by the Minister of Justice.
Ils ne sont pas soutenus financièrement par le gouvernement, mais leurs actions impulsionnent quand même l'agenda du gouvernement pour avancer dans la protection des victimes.
Lastly, but not the least, we support victims medically. We used to support some of our victims. And I said it initially that most of the victims are suffering. They have systemic problems. They are traumatized. So we provide medical care for them and also counseling.
Ils ont un soutien médical également aux victimes parce que, comme on le disait au début, la majorité des victimes sont traumatisées. Donc elles ont besoin, en plus de l'accompagnement juridique, ils ont besoin aussi de ce suivi médical qu'ils leur proposent.
We also have victims that are struggling in terms of their daily life, let alone to take care of their children going to school. So the Victim Center supports families of victims of those their children who are going to primary school, even at university level. And these are funding that we have secured, funding that we get from donation to support our victims. So we've been supporting their school fees as we go throughout the year.
Ils accompagnent également des victimes qui ont des enfants à l'école ou même à l'université et qui sont en difficulté, notamment pour payer.
I first wish to apologize to the guests about the condition of the place. It's definitely not very congenial because it's a bit warm in here, and I'm sorry about that. We could at least maybe the facilities are not very convenient, but I'm sorry about that. So, but all the same, you are still welcome to the center.
Je voudrais déjà vous présenter mes excuses pour les conditions. On sait qu'il fait très chaud, donc merci de vous être présenté malgré les commodités difficiles pour tout le monde.
So, I will try as much as possible to make my statement very, very brief. Unlike Mr. Jallo, who said he's a teacher, so he can. I am not a teacher, so I'll try to be as brief as possible.
He's a journalist.
He's a journalist, he's even worse. Even worse sometimes.
Je vais essayer d'être brève contrairement à mon collègue qui a eu une présentation très détaillée.
Well, he's already given you a background of the Victim Center and the purpose why it was established. And it's kind of a pressure group which is supposed to actually pile some pressure on the government to ensure that the victims of the previous regime are actually taken care of. Because you are all aware that we had 22 years of dictatorship in this country, and during that period, there were so many human rights violations and a lot of victims in the process.
Dans un premier temps, le centre a été imaginé pour répondre aux besoins des victimes de violations de droits humains sous l'ère Jammeh. Vous êtes tous au courant que la Gambie a vécu 22 ans de dictature, où de nombreuses violations des droits humains ont été perpétuées à ce moment.
So when there was a change of regime in 2017, it was decided that the victims of the previous regime decided to come together and form this center so that they can be able to at least take care of, business. Because we know that some of them were actually very, very seriously traumatized. Some of them had very serious medical issues. Some even died in the process. So, to bring the victims together so that they can actually pile some pressure on the government to be able to address their concerns and the problems.
Donc les victimes se sont rassemblées toutes ensemble pour former ce centre, pour répondre aux besoins après l'ère de Jammeh. Les victimes se sont rassemblées pour répondre à tous les traumatismes qui ont été vécus durant cette période. De nombreux problèmes médicaux ont eu lieu, certaines personnes y ont perdu la vie. Donc on nous sommes tous rassemblés pour pouvoir faire pression sur le gouvernement et demander réparation.
But in order for the victims' problems to be addressed, there is absolute need to actually consult with the government and the other relevant stakeholders, like the Minister of Justice, for instance. because as you know, the Gambia is passing through a transitional justice process, and it's important that the victims' issues always brought to the soul, so that brought to the fore, so that at least their problems can be addressed.
On a fait un maximum pour pouvoir donner la parole aux victimes et écouter leurs besoins. En Gambie, nous sommes dans un mouvement de justice transitionnelle pour pouvoir laisser la parole aux victimes durant la période de la dictature.
Yeah, well, as you know, immediately after the change of government, there was a commission set up called Truth Reparations and Reconciliation Commission, which was actually to look into the human rights violations that were committed by the former regime and see how best the situation can be addressed, and then some kind of monetary and other reparations are given to some of the victims.
Une commission de la vérité et de la réconciliation a été créée à la suite de cette période pour pouvoir répondre aux besoins des victimes et écouter et voir toutes les violations des droits humains qui ont été perpétrées durant cette période.
And the slogan of the Reparations Commission was "Never Again." So we wanted to ensure, the victims wanted to ensure, and in fact the whole country wanted to ensure that there was never a repetition of what happened in the past regime, when people's rights were violated. So this is the reason why the organizations like the Victim Center always insisting that this mantra, that is the never again mantra, is actually respected, so that the authorities will continue to be reminded that we will never again allow such a situation to arise in this country.
Le slogan de la Commission de la vérité et de la réconciliation et également le slogan de ce centre était plus jamais pour pouvoir répondre, pour pouvoir empêcher ce genre de violence des droits humains de se reproduire en Gambie.
So as Mr. Diallo said, we are definitely quite honored to have very important personalities listening to this center, because we immediately after here we will go so that you can see the kind of facilities available. But he has also highlighted the fact that within the center we have a lot of things that we want to do, but unfortunately we don't have the resources to do it. Probably if we have contact people, people like you, we can definitely probably be able to find means and possibilities of raising some funding or something.
On vous montrera les commodités et tout ce qui a été mis en place dans le centre. Cependant, on aimerait pouvoir faire plus, mais il nous manque les moyens et c'est pour ça qu'un travail avec vous...
As was mentioned, the Gambia is going through a transitional justice process after the previous dictatorship regime, 22 years, from 1994 to 2016. And since then, we have had several activities happen. One of them was the Truth Reconciliation and Reparation Commission, which ended in 2022. And keep going. I apologize.
Merci à tous. Merci à tous d'être venus. Je remercie encore une fois tous les participants et tous les panélistes de leur parole. Comme vous le savez, en Gambie, nous sommes dans un système de justice transitionnelle qui a eu lieu après l'ère de Jammeh de 1994 jusqu'à 2017. Nous avons mis beaucoup d'activités en place, notamment avec la Commission de la vérité et de la réconciliation en 2022.
Now, at the end of the Truth Commission, they had came up with recommendations, over 260 recommendations that they made to the government on how to address the violations that happened during the period, and also, like my colleague said, how to make sure that this never happens again, following our never again mantra.
Donc la Commission de la vérité et de la réconciliation a écrit plusieurs recommandations, 260, pour permettre de répondre à toutes les violations des droits humains qui ont été commises durant la période.
6 months after the recommendations were made, the government came up with a white paper which accepted over 95% of the recommendations made by the Commission.
6 mois de travail de recommandations ont été faits par la Commission pour qu'à la fin 90% des propositions soient acceptées par le gouvernement.
1 year later, the government put together an implementation plan, which is to show the strategy that they will use to implement the recommendations that was put forward by the Commission.
Un an plus tard, un plan d'action a été mis en place pour pouvoir mettre des stratégies en place grâce aux recommandations qui ont été faites par la Commission.
Now we've been working on that implementation plan following the recommendations, and since then some of the activities around reparations and accountability have been started.
Et depuis, le plan d'action a été mis en place pour pouvoir répondre aux besoins des victimes et réparer les besoins, et apporter de la réparation aux victimes.
I'll take you back a little bit. The Truth Commission that was set up was also mandated to give interim reparations to the victims at the time when they were sitting.
Donc la commission avait pour but de répondre aux besoins et réparer les besoins des victimes de l'époque.
So some of the victims were able to get medical support in the country and outside the country, and some of them were also able to get education support as part of that interim reparation.
Les victimes ont eu droit à un support médical ainsi qu'un support éducatif pour pouvoir demander réparation.
They also were able to get cash reparations, monies that were paid out to some of the victims during that time.
Il y a également eu des réparations financières qui ont eu lieu à l'époque.
And unfortunately, the funds didn't get as far as the total award, so a percentage was given to most of them.
Malheureusement, il n'y avait pas assez de moyens, donc un pourcentage a été reversé aux victimes et pas la somme estimée.
And the Commission has passed over the balances to the government to make those reparations.
Et la Commission a fait son maximum pour demander les réparations.
Since the end of the Truth Commission and the implementation plan was set up, Victims Reparation Bill was the highlight of the plan. Victims Reparation Act, which is a legal framework that was put to Parliament and approved to put together a commission that will work on reparations for victims.
Une fois que le plan d'action a été mis en place, un cadre légal pour les victimes a également été mis en place au Parlement pour pouvoir appliquer les stratégies et les recommandations de la Commission.
The act was passed in November of last year.
L'acte a été adopté en novembre dernier.
A few months late, according to the plan, it was supposed to be in June.
Le plan d'action était censé commencer au mois de juin.
But we are happy that it is in place and the government is working on putting together the commission.
Mais nous sommes ravis de savoir que le travail a commencé et que la Commission peut réaliser ses activités.
The last update from the ministry is that the commission will be set up by the end of this quarter, that is March of 2024. We expect the commission to be set up and start operating.
Nous espérons que la commission va pouvoir démarrer d'ici le mois de mars.
So for that, the role of the commission is to look at compensation, review the compensation that was awarded to the victims to see if it is sufficient or if not, to make recommendations.
Le rôle de la Commission est de voir les compensations qui ont été données aux victimes, de voir si elles ont été suffisantes ou non, de revenir dessus.
The Commission will also open up for victims that did not come forward during the time of the Commission, the Truth Commission.
Mais également pour les victimes qui ne sont pas venues à la Commission durant ce temps et qui demandent réparation également.
Other areas that the Commission will look into also rehabilitation, like further medical support, because there are some of the victims have lifelong injuries and will have to live with their injuries. So there will be further medical support, education support for the victims. We expect that to be.
Les autres domaines dans lesquels la Commission va travailler sont également la réhabilitation médicale des victimes qui ont vécu des blessures qui durent toute leur vie, mais également une réhabilitation éducative pour les victimes.
In terms of accountability, when the Truth Commission recommended prosecution for about 70 perpetrators, including the former president Yahya Jammeh,
la Commission, pour prendre en compte la parole et les besoins des victimes, la Commission a énuméré 70 perpétrateurs de violations de droits humains.
These are the people that were deemed to have the greatest responsibility in terms of violations.
Qui sont les personnes qui ont effectué le plus grand nombre de violations de droits humains durant la période.
The strategy adopted by the government is a hybrid court in collaboration with ECOWAS. The strategy adopted by the government is a hybrid court in collaboration with ECOWAS.
La solution de la Commission est donc une cour de justice hybride en collaboration avec la CEDEAO.
So since then also, because of the lack of certain legislation, the government has been working on putting together legislation that will allow this to happen.
Dû au manque de cadre légal et de loi de cette période, la Commission a également pour but de pouvoir structurer un peu plus le cadre légal.
In short, the government has been working on it, and we expect the investigations to start next year, and for cases to be start here to be heard by next year with the special prosecutions office that will be set up.
Et nous espérons que les enquêtes du gouvernement démarrent dès l'année prochaine.
And lastly, I know it's a very short time, you may be aware that there are also prosecutions that are happening outside the country under the principle of universal jurisdiction.
Vous n'êtes pas sans savoir qu'il y a également des violations qui ont lieu en dehors du pays.
A trial was completed in Germany in November of last year.
Et il y a notamment eu un procès en Allemagne l'année dernière.
And the perpetrator has been sentenced to life in prison in Germany.
Et l'agresseur a été emprisonné à vie en Allemagne.
And currently there's also one of the highest members of the Jame junta, a former minister, is being tried in Switzerland. The trial is ongoing at the moment.
Et l'un des plus grands agresseurs de l'ère de Jame, qui était un ancien ministre, lui également est poursuivi pour ses méfaits.
And we expect another trial to start in America, in the United States, in September of this year.
Et nous attendons le procès d'un des derniers agresseurs aux États-Unis l'année prochaine également.
And we hope that the government will continue working with the international community to get more of them that have escaped, or think that they have escaped.
Nous espérons que la communauté internationale va continuer de travailler en collaboration avec notre gouvernement pour emprisonner les agresseurs de cette période.
And that's in brief, that is the updates on that, based on time. So we thank you very much, and we look forward to your cooperation during this period that we are going in. This is something that the Gambia cannot do alone. We all need to do it as a global community.
Donc voilà pour les évolutions du travail de la Commission. Ce travail en
that I have on my list to tell you. I'll not go back to the establishment of the Victim Center and the activities that we've done.
Merci à tous pour votre présence. Je pense que mes collègues ont dit la majorité des choses. Donc je ne vais pas retourner sur la question de l'établissement du centre et de ses activités.
I'll just go to the other challenges. I guess Mr. Diallo and Chairman had mentioned the challenges that we had, but I'll go straight to the other challenges that we have as an institution.
Ok, Monsieur Diallo a déjà évoqué les différents challenges, les différents défis, mais je vais aller sur d'autres défis pour en dire plus.
The first challenges that we've been facing in terms of the transitional justice is the delay in setting up the reparations commission that had been long overdue.
Le premier défi est celui du laps de temps entre la sentence de réparation et l'obtention des réparations par les victimes.
Delays in establishing and also delays in establishing the reconciliation commission.
Le délai entre créer cette commission et la concrétisation de cette commission concrète.
Which is impacting on the healing process of victims.
Et cela a un impact très concret sur le processus de réparation et de soins des victimes dans le temps.
Livelihood support as well is also another challenge that victims are facing.
C'est un challenge qu'il ne faut pas négliger dans la prise en charge des victimes.
And another major challenge that we've been facing during the transitional justice process is having a forensic identification center for those whose remains have been exhumed, and up till today their families are not being given their bodies for proper burials because we don't have the expertise and the center to do this tests to be conducted.
Un autre challenge, un autre défi est celui de l'identification des dépouilles des victimes qui crée encore plus de troubles.
Victims also continue to face health challenges. Mr. Jala had mentioned we had victims that have terminal illnesses and are still going through series of breakdowns, series of issues that they have to go back to the hospital at every given point of their lives.
Donc il y a des victimes qui sont en phase terminale de cancer ou de maladies très graves et qui doivent se rendre à l'hôpital et donc il faut savoir les prendre en charge correctement également.
And also going back to another challenge that, the main challenge that had brought you here to the Gambia, you've mentioned you came here because of abuse against women, gender-based violence. Women have been facing specific challenges with regards to the transitional justice process. So women are generally marginalized when it comes to issues of reparations. Because at the end of the day, we have women whose husbands have been killed. When it comes to issues of reparations, they find it difficult to have access to these reparations. But the fact that they're women and they can't make certain decisions on behalf of the families.
Okay. Et sur la question des violences faites aux femmes, les femmes sont souvent marginalisées dans ce processus de réparation et elles ont beaucoup de mal à obtenir des réparations, notamment dans le cadre familial pour their husbands.
Yeah, most of the women whose husbands have been killed.
Yeah, okay. So la plupart des conjoints, des maris des femmes victimes ont été tués et donc elles ont beaucoup de mal à obtenir des réparations, à faire valoir leurs droits.
And also, due to limited funds, women find it difficult to access information because there is no much projects that are being done to ensure that women access information.
Il y a un vrai sujet sur l'accès à l'information parce que beaucoup de femmes ne sont pas au courant de leurs droits.
And also inadequate support for women of SGBV. This is always a challenge for women who go through sexual and gender-based violence in this country. Access to medical health, access to proper access to lawyers to litigate their cases in court. These are all issues that women are facing when it comes to SGBV in the Gambia.
Donc il y a beaucoup de difficultés sur la question de la prise en charge des violences faites aux femmes, sur l'accès à la justice notamment, mais aussi sur tout le parcours de santé.
And thank you very much. I'll stop here and I think you have
Thank you very much, Aisha. We are time constrained, so